Hi, my name is Shalay Washington, and my dissertation research focuses on Ophelia DeVore Mitchell. Beauty was her business from the time frame of 1940 to 2000s. So for this particular topic, I have been researching this topic for about 12 years now. It started in my undergraduate historiography course, where my professor, he basically gave us our final project to either be a local history or a familiar history project. I was an out-of-state student, so I was not too familiar with the area or interested in something to produce a 20-page paper on. So I knew certain aspects and elements of my family history, so I chose to go the familiar history route. So I chose my aunt Ophelia DeVore Mitchell because I did know of her owning the Columbus Times newspaper in Columbus, Georgia, where I have stayed quite some time. My dad has been stationed there in the military. But she actually broke her mold and broke history in America by becoming America's first mixed race model of the Vogue Modeling School in 1938 when she was only 18 years old. Well, she was only 16 years old. And she was actually a student at NYU, majoring in math and minoring in languages. And she, at this time frame, they didn't have, your ethnicity and background on applications. So they believed for her to be a Norwegian woman. And this is also, reminds you at the same time frame, prior to World War II, where we have millions of Eastern European immigrants fleeing their homelands due to the situations leading up into World War II. But with that, her legacy, it actually spreads over many aspects of history: beauty, business, entertainment, African American women's, international, social, cultural, political, economic, and so much more. Throughout my years of doing my research on her and her life's work, I have also focused on the other aspects and pivotal moments, oppression, setbacks, and gains that other African American women face that intertwines with my aunt's legacy, because she was, a part of a lot of those pivotal moments throughout the years that I will cover. Throughout the years, my aunt, her legacy has, come back up into America's conversational or American history. With the death of Cicely Tyson, and also the death of Diahann Carroll in the last, 2 years. These were two of her most famous models, actresses who, went off and created another legacy within Black entertainment that she was a part of. So her name has come back up into this conversation quite often. Layla Hader Ali is a professor and historian at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And her research areas, they focus on the race, gender, and sexuality of African American women of the 20th century. Her most recent work is titled Brown Beauty, Race, Sex, and Color from Harlem Renaissance to World War II. And this book came out in 2018, but she actually has articles going back to 2005 that covers information on my aunt and, race and color and sex from the Harlem Renaissance to World War II. And within her most recent work, she details how the war brought about a development of Black and brown beauty amongst African American women, which led African American women to being a part of the print and entertainment culture, and how the worldview and stereotypes of African American women began to change in a more positive way. My aunt Ophelia, she created She was a part of creating a Black modeling agency as well as a charm school. So both of these platforms, they gave Black women an outlet to, be a model, be an actress, or be famous, but it also gave them a way to create a job or work in a job force or industry that they had never been welcome to before. And so with Layla Hader Ali first talking about this topic in 2005 in Polishing Brown Diamonds, African American Women, Popular Magazines, and Modeling in Early Post-War America. She introduces my aunt and her triracial background, her integration of the modeling school, and of course that she knew that, she didn't want to model, but she did want to take the information and knowledge from modeling and present it to others for them to be able to use it as well. And of course, after World War II, there was an increase of white collar workers amongst African American women due to, the war era, production of goods. So with this, African American women, prior to this time, they were viewed as lacking middle class morals and other things that were necessary for white collar work. So with Ophelia DeVore's charm school, she was able to give these women a way for them to, have these certificates of completion and bringing it back to their potential workplaces to show that, I do belong here as well too. Hader Ali also covers the Negro market, which was presented by David Sullivan, where, after the Great Migration, especially between the years of 1940 and 1950, the urban inhabitation, it increased, by 45%. And not only did that increase, but the income, the salary, the yearly incomes of African Americans also increased during that time. It went from $489 in 1939 to $1,448 in 1947. And so this increase, it allowed corporations to sell the new consumers, the bigger income, it helps boost the glamour. And this was said from Hader Ali from her article of Giving Colored Sisters a Superficial Equality. Another historian who talked about Ophelia's work is Malia McAndrew. And she is also a professor and historian, but at John Carroll University in University Heights, Ohio. And she specializes in U.S. history, women's history, and also gender studies. Her research areas focus on women in Japan during the U.S. occupation and Black women in the beauty industry post-war. She particularly focuses on a Lieutenant Ethel Reed, but with her focusing on the beauty industry post-war of World War II, this is how she has focused her information or focusing some of her research on my aunt. So she actually had an article titled A 20th Century Triangular Trade, Selling Black Beauty at Home and Abroad, 1945 to 1965. And also Selling Black Beauty, African American Modeling Agencies and Charm Schools in Post-War America. Both of these articles were released in 2010, a few years prior to Ophelia's death in 2014. But in A 20th Century Triangular Trade, she details Ophelia DeVore Mitchell's philosophy, experiences within selling Black beauty, and how international achievements made her more relevant within American history. Ophelia DeVore, starting the Grace Del Marco Agency with colleagues in 1946, it presented a platform for African American women to be able, to have representation in the modeling and in the beauty industry. And this is where Ophelia and one of her models, Cecilia Cooper, they did go to the International Cannes Festival and they won. And they were the first American, black or white, to win. And this is what really piqued her fame. Ophelia said it herself, quotation, "I went to Europe and I returned, and then when I came back to America, I had it made," end quotation. And so McAndrew also discusses the Negro market that was presented by David Sullivan. But she also notates how my aunt wants to get her businesses and models outside of the Negro market. She wants them to be a part of it, but she wants them to be more than included in the Negro market. In her work, Selling Black Beauty, McAndrew, she basically presents how the Black beauty industry developed and how the opening of charm schools and etiquette schools like Grace Del Marco, it changed the way that African American were viewed worldwide. Mainstream media changed. They were able to change and work in job industries that they never were able to before. They were able to make more money. And this is also where she not only increased it for regular women, but even models. Her black models started to make more money, and their dollars start to equate with the white models. And she also, McAndrew also discusses how Diahann Carroll became the first African American woman with a lead role in a character outside of this domesticity in her show Julia, where she played an attractive nurse and caring mother. And Ophelia DeVore Mitchell was pretty much the negotiator for this contract. And models during this time frame, black models were only making $7.50 an hour, which was half the rate for many of white models. Helen Williams was the first African American model to gain an International Fashion Designer in 1959 with Christian Dior. And this was also negotiated by Ophelia DeVore Mitchell as well, too. So by 1961, Helen Williams was making $50 to $100 an hour. Well, you have other inexperienced black models who were making $15 to $30 an hour, which was still a huge increase from the $7.50. Also, at the end, prior to her death, she did donate her life's work to Emory University. And this has also been, an archive, a plethora of primary sources that have come available, where her life's work can get placed into African American history, women's history, business history, or so forth. Thank you.